The 14 most dangerous foods in the world. Your grocery store is full of healthy foods which provide life-sustaining nutrients. It's also filled with foods that could harm you. As it turns out, some of the most dangerous foods in the world seem quite harmless, and they may be in your fridge right now. Number 1, hot dogs. Hot dogs are a choking hazard. Johns Hopkins Medicine found that hot dogs are the leading cause of choking-related injuries in children under 3 years of age. Their research suggests that hot dogs account for about 17% of all choking cases in children. The shape of the hot dog pieces and the texture of the meat are the culprit. Concerned parents are encouraged to chop the hot dogs into very fine pieces for their youngest kids. Number 2, meat. According to the CDC, more than 75% of E. coli poisoning incidents came from 2 food groups: vegetable raw crops and beef. The data suggests that they're actually dangerous, and each year more than 2,000 people are hospitalized because of an E. coli infection. However, beef and other meats like chicken and pork are among the leading contributors of salmonella illnesses. Meats are especially dangerous because the animal's gut bacteria can find a way into the meat. Well done tip: it's easy to avoid these types of foodborne illnesses by cooking the meat. The current recommendation is 160 degrees for ground beef and 145 degrees for steaks and roasts. Number 3, potatoes. Green potatoes aren't a sign of an unripe spud. They're a sign you may have a toxic food on your hands. Exposure to light can produce a chemical called solanine. Along with solanine, light-exposed potatoes also produce chlorophyll, which gives potatoes the green color. In certain doses, this chemical can be toxic, leading to symptoms like headache, nausea, and even some neurological problems. Well done tip: cut off any sprouts on the potato and remove any of the green spots before you cook it. If the entire potato is green, toss it. Number 4, pufferfish. This infamous balloon-shaped fish is the second most poisonous vertebrate in the world. One pufferfish has enough toxins to kill 30 healthy adults, and the poison is 1,200 times more deadly than cyanide. That doesn't seem to keep people from wanting to live on the edge. The fish is banned in the United States, but in Japan, chefs must undergo rigorous training if they want to properly handle and cook it. In some high-end restaurants, the delicacy sells for hundreds of dollars. I'm never going to look at a pufferfish the same way again. Number 5, elderberries. In the world of natural remedies, elderberries are often touted as a cure-all for many ailments. But be careful. These processed products might lead you to believe that the berries are safe for consumption. It turns out that raw elderberries, as well as the bark and leaves, are toxic. They contain a compound that causes nausea, vomiting, cramps, dizziness, numbness, and weakness. They're also toxic to livestock and can cause death. Elderberries are not grown commercially in the U.S., so don't worry about finding them in your grocery store. You may find cooked versions which can be safely used in everything, from pies and compotes to syrups and jams. Just be vigilant if you find the raw variety in the wild or even in alternative treatments where they're not processed and cooked. Elderberries taste like elderberries. Number 6, wild mushrooms. You've likely known from a young age that you can't trust the mushrooms growing in your front yard, or in any yard for that matter. That's because wild mushrooms can be toxic. The death cap mushroom is responsible for 90% of mushroom-related deaths. The CDC reports that poisoning from this species are increasing. Of course, not all wild mushrooms are toxic or deadly. If you find yourself with a trained forager or experienced mycologist, you may be able to harvest quite a bounty. Before buying wild mushrooms at the farmer's market, first verify the training of whoever's selling the fungi. Mushrooms are one of my favorite toppings on pizza, but I won't be using the wild ones. Number 7, rhubarb. When spring starts to peek around the corner, you may find yourself itching to have that first strawberry rhubarb pie of the season. And I'm certainly not here to rain on that parade. But I do want to warn you about rhubarb leaves. Rhubarb leaves contain a compound called oxalic acid. High amounts of oxalic acid can be poisonous, with symptoms like trouble breathing, diarrhea, and kidney failure. In some cases, oxalic acid overdose can be fatal. Rhubarb leaves are often discarded immediately, leaving only the stalks for recipes. If you do find these greens flavorful for some reason, just know that it takes quite a bit to reach toxic levels. A toxic dose would be about 10 pounds of rhubarb leaves. You're good. Number 8, tuna. Unfortunately, mercury levels are rising throughout the world's oceans, which means the fish absorb more of the metal into their flesh. If you eat a lot of tuna or any large fish that's especially susceptible to mercury absorption, then you're at risk for mercury toxicity. Symptoms include neurological issues like depression and irritability. Internal mercury levels can rise over time, which can lead to mercury poisoning. Symptoms include a lack of coordination, hearing problems, and trouble walking. That doesn't mean you should avoid tuna or sushi. The tasty fish is full of heart-healthy fats, and it's a great source of lean protein. Just opt for smaller fish from time to time to keep mercury consumption low. Number 9, kidney beans. These red beans are delicious in everything from soups to bean salads, or even red beans and rice. But if you eat them raw or undercooked, they could be poisonous to you. Raw kidney beans contain a toxic protein called phytohemagglutinin, also known as PHA. Even a small handful of undercooked kidney beans could lead to symptoms like vomiting, nausea, and diarrhea. Well done tip, when kidney beans are cooked, the levels of PHA fall drastically. After soaking, be sure to change the water, then boil them until they're soft. Number 10, star fruit. The unique yellow-green fruit is a great topper for desserts or treats, but for some people, star fruit can be dangerous and even deadly. Star fruit contains a toxin called caramboxin. For people with a kidney disease, this toxin can build up in the body, eventually reaching the brain and causing symptoms like vomiting, weakness, and confusion. At sufficient doses, it can cause seizures, coma, and even death. If you don't have any kidney issues, you're in the clear. Enjoy your star fruit. Number 11, stone fruit pits and fruit seeds. Fruit pits and seeds are not typically considered an edible portion of fruit, but if you find yourself enjoying the cores of stone fruits, apples, and pears, you might want to stop. These pits and seeds contain amygdalin, a poisonous compound that is digested into cyanide. You have to eat dozens to reach toxic levels. That's true for apple and pear seeds, as well as pits from stone fruits like apricots and peaches. But it's a good idea to avoid them altogether, or at least eat them in moderation if you find the hard pits irresistible. Number 12, shellfish. For some people, shellfish are deadly because they're one of the most severe food allergies. One bite can cause a severe allergic reaction that can be deadly if not treated quickly enough. For others, these foods are dangerous because of the bacteria that can live inside them. That's especially the case for raw shellfish, which are a leading cause of foodborne illness in the U.S. They filter water through their bodies, which can absorb some potentially harmful microbes and bacteria. Raw oysters are a particular concern, as they can be contaminated with bacteria known as Vibrio. A vibriosis infection can cause diarrhea, vomiting, bloodstream infections, and death. Cooking the shellfish is the only way to kill these potentially harmful pathogens. Well done tip, the CDC recommends cooking seafood to 145 degrees and reheating it to 165 degrees. Raw and undercooked shellfish should be avoided. Number 13, raw milk, cheese, and dairy products. In the U.S., some states forbid the sale of raw or unpasteurized milk. Others heavily restrict the sale to these products to farms or retail stores. That's because they can make people sick or worse. Raw milk and dairy products have not been pasteurized. In other words, they have not been heated to kill or reduce the number of potentially harmful pathogens. Raw milk advocates say the food is healthier and more nutritious before it's heated. But in reality, that morning cup of milk could be swarming with potentially deadly bacteria. Foods that are made with raw milk can still be just as dangerous. Raw milk cheeses, such as camembert, may harbor the pathogens, as can raw milk ice creams and yogurts. Number 14, sprouts. Sprouts such as alfalfa sprouts grow best in warm and humid conditions. That just happens to be the happy zone for bacteria growth too. E. coli, salmonella, and listeria are commonly tied to sprouts. In the late 1990s, when sprouts were increasingly popular, the FDA tried to provide the sprout industry with safer practices for better growing, and they continue to work together to try to make sprouts safe to consume. You may see them at farmers markets and even in some grocery stores. These are the 14 most dangerous foods in the world. Proceed with caution.